Summer's hotter weather is finally here, but don't let hair loss also make you sweat. Regrow hair with help from Hims. They provide access to personalized treatment so you can see thicker, fuller hair in just 3 to 6 months. Get started from the comfort of home. Fill out an intake form and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Hail Mary. That's HIMS.com/Hail Mary for personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/Hail Mary. Individual results may vary. Based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The Three Down Greencast is brought to you by Lucky Bastard Distillers, Saskatchewan's premier distillery, and by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, brewed in the heart of Regina.
Welcome to the Three Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only The West Runs Through Regina podcast. I am Joel Gasson with John Fraser, as usual. We have a few things to get to this week. We are thankful this week after post-Thanksgiving that the Riders gave us some news to talk about besides another underwhelming win, even though it was a win, and that's really all that counts this time of year. If we just had the game to talk about, we frankly probably wouldn't have had a very good episode this week. We would have tried to find a way to really go off the rails to make sure we filled our time.
What we could have just done is quite literally just played last week's episode with some different shenanigans and just edited in. Like the famous Simpsons episode where Moe puts the mug up against his mouth and says, "The Atlanta Falcons." You basically could have just turned any talk of the Riders game into the Toronto Argonauts away from the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Potentially, yes. But we do have some other things to talk about. We will talk about the game. We will talk, of course, about the Riders clinching first place in the West and what appears to be their approach now that they've done that, at least heading into this weekend in Winnipeg, which I don't think anyone can disagree potentially with what they're doing going into such a hostile environment. We'll talk about that. And, of course, we'll also talk about their decision to sign head coach Corey Mace and general manager Jeremy O'Day to 2-year extensions, which will keep them in green and white potentially through the 2028 season.
Good. I like it.
Yep.
I mean, it's hard not to like.
Yeah. Yeah, without spoiling too much.
Of course,
there could be some hot takes coming. Stay tuned.
No,
not really.
See, I've also got a theory about how the club's going to do from here on out because of this.
That's fair. You may remember last week we opened the show discussing the fact that there was no Grey Cup halftime announcement.
Yes.
Here we are a week later, almost to the minute when we're recording this. I actually don't remember what time we actually started recording last week, but it was roughly the same time every week these days.
Yes.
And there is still no halftime Grey Cup announcement. And we don't know when one will be coming, if one will be coming anytime soon. It was the one in Regina where apparently it was November 2nd when they announced it, so they're not at the worst time just yet. But yeah, we're still waiting on that.
But could we also argue, and it's a bad sign based on the track record, that getting 2/3 of Florida Georgia Line might have been the most underwhelming Grey Cup halftime show ever?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like the league's track record is not, oh, we're going to do something really cool. It's a washed up country band, and my own fear,
and not even all of them,
right? As I've been watching a lot of Blue Jays playoffs. Is it seems like Rogers and others are just like downright obsessed with shitty old CanCon music right now. Like I no joke, doing the dishes today, watching my phone like I normally do, got my AirPods in, and because normally I can just hit mute on my remote, much like whenever there's a, I don't have a new contract yet, well, just like whenever Marshall Ferguson calls a game, I just put it on mute, okay? However, when I'm doing the dishes, my hands are a little occupied, and during a commercial break, it went Rush, Troopers Raise a Little Hell, Triumph, right back to Troopers Raise a Little Hell. So I'm a little fearful that the powers that be are like, yeah, there must be some sort of resurgence of old Canadian rock that nobody listens to, and that's what is going to be shoved down our throats on Grey Cup Sunday.
I don't think it'll be that. I mean, we're still a little bit out. We'll see where it goes. If we're judging it just based on music on the broadcast, TSN's has been a little more diverse, I suppose. It's all still generic rock, but there's been a mixture, I believe, of like, I've heard Smash Mouth a few times this year. I've heard Guns N' Roses a few times this year. I have heard Trooper, obviously. So if it's based solely on music played on the broadcast, seems to be a wider range of artists available through that discourse than there is apparently with Rogers and what they're doing with the Blue Jays right now.
However, they also have some of the most dog shit music going to and from break you've ever heard. Between the generic TSN football theme and the Friday Night Football in and outs and the fact that it's still the players singing the song of Friday Night Football. Yeah, I'm not optimistic right now, Gas.
I mean, luckily TSN isn't in on picking, as far as we know. They're not really involved with the halftime show other than broadcasting it, so there's that.
As somebody that has worked adjacent to TSN, they're in on everything.
Well, they're in on it to a degree, of course, but
I don't know. my spidey senses are tingling that maybe they're just not going, and it strikes me.
Maybe John Hodge made the joke on the 3 Down Nation podcast this week that the halftime show might just be the Bombers coming to run Skelly so they can say that they've been in the Grey Cup 6 straight years.
Yeah, okay. I'd be okay with that. That'd be okay.
It's pretty funny.
Just so you can let's go with that. That is.
I mean, what they could do is what the Riders did this week. They did the light show where like the fans, you connect with your phone, and it was really cool. It's fun. It went on a little bit long, I'll say that, but it was pretty cool overall. The dance team was out there. They had lights in their pom-poms, so that looked kind of cool. Just add in like some drones, do a little bit of a drone show in the middle of it, and be really interactive. And I think people would have a lot of fun with it. Now, obviously, that wouldn't necessarily sell very well on television, and I understand that. But as far as regular season halftime shows went, it was fairly entertaining and something different for a change.
And see, that's the thing, is I'm worried as you're going to get a regular season level halftime show when you've got all this time carved out in the broadcast that you know is already sold, so they're going to have to put somebody there. So now that we've talked about it 2 weeks in a row and they still haven't announced it, I mean, we're still saying they could do the Sickos Committee podcast live. 100% they could. And they can bring us out as a special guest, for the, just to have the more Canadian
Well, you'll have to
feel.
be there via our recording software or something.
Oh, if the Sickos Committee were inviting me on to do a live show at Winnipeg Grey Cup halftime, I would find a way to be there.
That's fair enough, I suppose, yeah. But we would have to be in separate rooms in the building.
Okay, that is the only way that I would ever record this with you in the same room, is if it was live on stage at a major event like the Grey Cup.
Yeah, that's obviously not going to happen. Some other things that may not be happening for some people, there's been a bit of scuttlebutt online because apparently the Grey Cup Festival tickets sold out pretty quickly, the party passes, the multi-day ones, and that's more or less all that was available. So I guess
yes.
Tuesday night you were messaging me that there's a lot of talk going on online right now that these things are sold out. And obviously John Hodge saw those same conversations and he dug into it. And the Grey Cup Committee in Winnipeg has now released a little bit of inventory, but not a ton. But they are apparently trying to work with some fans who reached out looking for tickets after inventory originally sold out, which is pretty wild. Like that. That's when Winnipeg is really hot market right now when we're talking about the festival being sold out a month in advance.
Well, and I also read that the festival is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? I didn't have the exact names of the teams that have sold out, but naturally...
Well, I assume they're doing the thing where you buy in, and then it gets you into everything probably except for the Edmonton one. Spirit of Edmonton is usually separate, but everything else is generally together.
But generally, you're also going to have less inventory if you're in a smaller building because you have less spaces done, and it seems like that's the way it's going.
It's not it might be getting smaller this year. Last year in BC, the rooms were mammoth. I can tell you that because that's just the convention center they used.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. BC is one of the best places for it because you have almost unlimited inventory because of the spaces. They
were almost too big. Like people who went said, like it was fun, but it was like you could notice the extra space around just because of how gigantic these rooms were, and they like cut down how much you could actually access at the time even. So
I remember being in Riderville on a Friday night in BC in the 2011 year, and they used such a large room that like there was a full concert going on. I want to say it was like Street Heart or somebody. You could get far enough away in the same room to another bar that was nowhere near the concert and not have to listen to the concert. Like it's astounding how big those are. But and maybe I'm just like such an early planner, especially like something like the Grey Cup Festival. If I know I'm traveling I'm going to be on those party passes really early. But you have to remember that in markets like Regina, in markets like Winnipeg.
Well, right now, there's one thing we know Winnipeggers love doing. It's packing into a large building and paying for overpriced beer.
Sure
because
do.
they've sold out 100 games in a row, you know?
That's true. And then not to mention the Winnipeg Jets and then the strong attendance numbers of the Manitoba Moose. And there's not a lot to do in Winnipeg. So go someplace and get drunk, especially at a venue that like you can't tailgate. And the buses are pretty strict on the no drinking on buses. So a Winnipeg tailgate is like a few shots of something real good right before you leave the door. So you're at least still somewhat warm by the time you get to Princess Auto Stadium.
Well, I mean, there are at the stadium itself on game days, there are, tailgates, quote unquote, going on.
Right.
There's a lot of don't ask, don't tell. From what I understand, around Princess Auto Stadium now.
See, that's fair. I've only ever been to like the official team one, where instead of being $7, the beers are $5. Right. Yep. So that's just my own experience. But no, it's that people in Winnipeg are going to treat it like a night out. It's the same as Regina. You're going to have more of a local feel. Yep. So I think especially this time around compared to the previous time Winnipeg was there when they kind of sucked. Now we're kind of in the middle of the Winnipeg peak. So yeah, local people are going to be jazzed up to go to this thing until they end up missing the playoffs.
They won't miss the playoffs.
They could,
but I mean, Edmonton's not going to. I mean, Edmonton probably won't win another game this year. So,
I mean, they could.
Theoretically, they could, but they really wasted their best opportunity by not trying to win the season series against Winnipeg last week.
Yes, there's also that, but yeah, I mean,
what's probably going to happen is they may cross over to the east and then they'll get spanked by Montreal. So or you're going to get the bizarro one where Winnipeg's going to win. They're going to host Montreal, and it's just going to be super vanilla, and they're going to have something all drawn up and ready to go, and they're going to end up beating Montreal, which almost never happens. And then I think, to me, Winnipeg's a good matchup for Hamilton, and we're going to get our Riders-Bombers Grey Cup. It's plausible. I don't think you can rule out any matchups this year. Like, even Calgary has decided that they actually can play football again. Right. That or the Hamilton Ticats are far more broken than we expected, and maybe we should be worried about them. Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know.
Or the Edmonton Elks sneak in and behind Fajardo Power make it to the Grey Cup. Like, it's legit. Like, you could convince me on any combination of all the teams that aren't eliminated.
Yeah. If Winnipeg if Edmonton found their way in, then yes, you could convince me of them getting through. No question.
Yes, no question at all. Because they'll be going through the East. They're a team on a heater. It's strikingly like the Montreal team that Cody Fajardo led as well, right? Just like if Winnipeg crosses over, I think Winnipeg's got a better chance crossing over than they do going through the West. I think the only combination
I don't think it's easy either way. I mean, if the door's still open, so if Montreal ends up hosting the East Final, which is still technically possible, then maybe. But if you got to face Montreal in the East Semi, I don't care who crosses over. I don't like their chances in that game.
No, but for a team that likes to air it out and refuses to let their quarterback not air it out, being in a slightly warmer environment against teams that you generally play a little bit better against, I think would give Winnipeg a puncher's. I don't. The only combination you couldn't convince me of is Winnipeg coming out of the West right now. You could salesman me on Calgary. You could salesman me on BC. You could obviously Saskatchewan. I just don't see Winnipeg beating two of those three teams. I do see, after what we've seen from Hamilton lately, I see Winnipeg pulling off an upset in Montreal and then beating Hamilton.
It is likely more possible, but I don't like their chances getting out of Montreal. To me, that's a stumbling block. If it turns around the other way and Hamilton's hosting the East Semi and then it's down to one game to get to the Grey Cup, I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe. They might actually do that.
Some things can happen. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I don't disagree fully with that. And this isn't, as all seven of you know, this isn't like me wearing blue-colored glasses. Because, in fact, and Joel has a text to prove it, the chaos of the fact that a lot of Bomber fans have been calling for this team to retool for this year, and they just decided to double and then triple down with the same veteran core, if it would lead to them missing the playoffs, I'd be good with that.
Yeah, we know. We know you like being right more than you enjoy winning. So
I sure fucking do. I guess that's the joys when your team has won a whole lot. You can be a bit of a knob about it.
Yeah, you can accept, sort of being like, I told you so.
Exactly. Told you so. I don't get a lot right on podcasts, but I got that one right.
The Riders have obviously gotten this season right so far. They are going to host the West Final on November 8th. We got that and a whole lot more to get into. But as always, John, for the Palabrones Brewing Company, what is in the glass this week?
We're going a little light this week, thanks to one of the best deals on the planet, the Rebellion 18-pack at Costco. Going with a little cerveza, but of course, going light for me means pairing that delicious 4.2% beer with a literal glass of vodka.
As always.
Of course. It's just not a 7% beer in a glass of vodka.
No. For me, I have also one of my favorites from the Rebellion Brewing Company, their Bunny Hug, multi-German amber. Think kind of their amber ale, but a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit different bite to it, but just really tasty, really crushable, and just a really solid beer that comes out every time this time of year.
I just poured my beer into my vodka with lime, so much for taking it easy.
I mean, whether you drink them separate or together, it's all the same, really. So
that's true, but based on the level of emptiness in my stomach, they will hit harder quicker, and then I'm sure the spicier, dumber takes will come.
Well, that's what we're here for. So,
yay!
That's good. That's good. What was also good was the Saskatchewan Roughriders beating the Toronto Argonauts last week. Was at Mosaic Stadium, and that win, 27-19, over the Toronto Argonauts, clinched them first place in the West Division.
Yes, it did.
In a game where that was the likely outcome coming in. They did pretty much what most of us expected them to do, which was beat the Argos, but not cover the 10.5-point spread, as our lack of faith in the offense was rewarded for the most part, as they were unable to pull away from the Argos, who for most of the game had a chance to win, but you never really felt they really had the horses to pull it off, because Jared Daggy just staying it, quite frankly.
No.
And as a bit of a sidebar, I think it needs to be mentioned, what the heck was Ryan Dinwiddie doing in that game, leaving Jared Daggy in there?
Yeah.
When his head bounced off the turf more times than a basketball.
Yeah, and twice. And both times the guy got up grabbing his head.
Yeah, he got pulled by the concussion spotter once, and then he was just stayed in the rest of the game. And it's just like, okay, if this game meant something, I still wouldn't like it, but I could maybe understand the decision to keep the guy who you think is the best quarterback in there. This game meant nothing to you.
Yes.
It literally meant nothing. Why not give Tucker Horn a chance? And then the one drive, he looked really good.
4 to 5 for 35 yards. I thought the exact same thing. Like,
why not keep him in?
I thought when Daggy went down and grabbed at his head, it was almost a replica or duplicate of the first time it happened. I'm like, okay, you're putting Tucker Horn back in. Like, This is just Tucker Horn's game. The guy's obviously not going to be soup brained. I'm sure Daggy is pushing to go back in because he's playing for his future career here as well, as Toronto's getting an early look at their 4th and 5th string guys here to end this season. So I'm shocked that Tucker Horn didn't go back in, especially with how good he looked. And I honestly thought Tucker Horn coming in gave those vibes of like, they're prepared for the other guy. Yeah. You could see a little bit of spark here, because it's like he came in and was a bit more accurate, had a little bit of spark, and you thought, oh boy, this is how the Toronto Argonauts win this game, and then they just didn't. But here's my conspiracy theory in this game.
Okay.
And I texted this to you, okay? Speaking of dumb takes. They were stalling their drives intentionally to let Brett Lowther get right. Because, okay, now, we're all going to laugh. We all know it's silly. But there was a couple moments there when they needed to go down and score. They did it.
I just think their execution was off.
I think it's clearly
they weren't good. They haven't been good on offense for a month. I don't think there was any purposely stalling whatsoever. They just stalled themselves because that's what they're doing.
No, it was all to make Brett Lowther right.
I mean, that's a big risk. The way the year has gone risk that Brett Lowther's going to suddenly start making kicks to get him going.
And obviously, I'm kidding, but it just. I wonder, that got me thinking of the silliness of that over-the-top John conspiracy theory. If the struggles, especially the last couple of weeks, have been from them being so vanilla to keep it off tape for the playoffs.
I think it's part of it. But I still think, I think that, subbing guys back into the lineup, I think adding Sam Emilus and Keon Schaefer-Baker and to a degree a Joe, even though he's been around for a few weeks already, just is taking time for this to get together again. Yes. I think that's pretty obvious because they reinserted Joe Robustelli, who's been really good and frankly never should have been removed from the lineup in the first place. And all of a sudden the offense started moving the ball a little bit better.
Right.
Like the offense wasn't great, but you could see they were marginally better than they were the week before. And I think a lot of that was because of the play of Joe Robustelli, and clearly Trevor Harris sees that guy as a security blanket that he can trust. That is exactly it. You stole the words right out of my mouth. That when a quarterback has a guy that he knows he can trust, when it's okay, first read's not there, second read's not there, I know Joe's open, he can just go and get that guy the ball. So, I mean, you're probably going to see come playoff time, to me. They can't take him off the field now. They can't. No, absolutely you can't. No offense to Dante Myers. He's great. You find a way to get him on too, but like Joe Robustelli in some form or another, even if it's just certain packages, needs to be on that field. Yes, certainly. Which is almost funny because, everybody was all hyped about Joey coming back, but I guess he's got the passport, so he's going to find a way on the field. Yep. But it's the embarrassment of riches, and it's almost causing more harm than good at this point. But I think if Corey Mace somehow leaves Joe Robustelli out of the lineup when the games matter again, that's just foolish thinking. And he needs to be talking. You got to think he's got to be talking to Trevor Harris about making sure that guy's in there. Yeah, I would hope so. Yes. I mean, Corey Mace has been around the league long enough. He's a player's coach. He's been around. He's been in this exact situation. So I'm certain it's happening. And I'm certain that Trevor Harris is saying Robustelli needs to be in there because it worries me that come the West Final, that Joe Robustelli will be up in the press box.
Summer's hotter weather is finally here. But don't let hair loss also make you sweat. Regrow hair with help from Hims. They provide access to personalized treatment so you can see thicker, fuller hair in just 3 to 6 months. Get started from the comfort of home. Fill out an intake form and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Hail Mary. That's HIMS.com/Hail Mary for personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/Hail Mary. Individual results may vary. Based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Time. It's always vanishing. The commute, the errands, the work functions, the meetings, selling your car. Unless you sell your car with Carvana. Get a real offer in minutes. Get it picked up from your door. Get paid on the spot. So fast, you'll wonder what the catch is. There isn't one. We just respect you and your time. Oh, you're still here? Move along now. Enjoy your day. Sell your car today.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
That's fair. And I mean, I already have my worries about the West Final in general, knowing how this team plays coming off a bye. Yes. And now they're going to have basically multiple buys where a couple of them they have to play before that. So, if you could get, if you can have Joe Robustelli on the field, and that's a guy that Trevor knows he can go to a little bit early when he needs to, just to kind of get into that rhythm a little bit, I think that would be a big help as well. And the bottom line is he needs to be on the field. And that's how that goes.
Certainly, and I think we learned that against Toronto, and it's good that they're learning that lesson now rather than trying to be too cute again when it matters. But I'm with you. I think everybody should stay home against Winnipeg.
Certainly feels that way.
Well, and I mean, they're gearing up for that. And that, again, is the luxury of clinching so early, although, it's the old rest versus rust. I think, like, all jokes aside, Winnipeg puts a severe dent in their own playoff chances if they're not able to win this game against the Riders back.
Oh, no question. Like, this is a huge, absolute must-win for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They don't need the pressure going into the last week of not having at least a playoff spot locked up, right? So
right, and this way they'll still control their own destiny.
Yeah,
right.
But you mentioned it. Like, we know that Joe Robicelli needs to be in the lineup going forward. If you've looked at the injury list this week, the Riders have decided that this game in Winnipeg they're not taking any chances, which I think is entirely fair.
Yes,
you have 2 games left. One's on the road, one's at home. The one on the road is in the only environment, actually, I will say, the only environmental league that is more difficult to play in than your own, and has been a nightmare for the Saskatchewan Roughriders historically over the last 10 years. So why would you risk going into Winnipeg in a game where you don't have to with a whole bunch of good players? There's just absolutely no reason to. We heard the news early on in the week. Jake Maier was taking the number 1 reps, so we can all expect Trevor Harris not to play in this game. He's listed as available for his game status, but load management, limited practice Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, he's probably not playing. Players that of other, sort of notable that will not be playing for obvious reasons. Micah Johnson, also listed as load management, did not practice at all on Wednesday. He's listed as out. Dante Myers had an injury last week, so he's out. Roland Milligan Jr. has been injured. He's out. AJ Oled randomly just popped up on the practice injury report on Wednesday as limited after not being on it at all on Monday and Tuesday. So obviously they decided, nope, he's not going to play either. Shane Ray, Marcus Sales, all listed as out. Tommy Stevens still out. Brett Lawther is available, so that's one of the guys that I will probably play. Tavon Campbell, interestingly listed as available after missing the last number of weeks, but I would be surprised if we see him play. But
agreed.
I suppose in the CFL, you can't sit everyone. There just isn't enough players, and there's salary cap considerations with that as well. So maybe he goes in and plays a little bit just to try and knock some rust off this week. But clearly this team has decided that they're going into Winnipeg with not all of their best players, and they're not going to risk anything going into that environment. And quite frankly, no one can blame them.
No, certainly. I feel bad if you're a Riders fan in Winnipeg that was expecting to see any of the stars for that game. But on the same note, it also would be like the ultimate. And this is why I'm excited to see the Riders' approach to this game, because now that you're playing with as many backups as you humanly can, what a dagger it would be in this rivalry to go into Winnipeg and upset the Bombers.
Oh, no question. Like if you not only that, like you beat the Bombers with your B team, more good chunk of your B team, and you then also sweep the season series in their building.
Yes, which 2 giant moral victories, and obviously I don't want to see that happen as a Bombers fan, but it would be such a good thing to happen for the Riders, because again, they're going to close the regular season on what is going to be an absolutely meaningless game for both parties.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, no, BC might be playing for
BC hasn't technically clinched the home game yet for the West Semi, but they are the odds-on favorite right now.
No, certainly, right? So, again, and that's almost the situation you want to see play out, right? Like, because let's face it, Rider fans are going to be doing a lot of scoreboard and other game watching because their game's not going to be very interesting at all. To me, what you want to see is BC win, clinch that home playoff game, and then you've almost got the gentleman's agreement game like there was at the end of last season. Was just like, let's go out and not show anything in the playbook and not really get super spicy about this, and then everybody stays healthy, right? So that to me, that means you don't have to play 2 teams playing for something back to back when it means nothing to you, because that's when bodies go down, that's when guys get hurt, and that's when you could put yourself into a real jam. Nobody's going to care if the Riders are going to lose these next 2 games, but still, as a player, you still care, and you don't want that hovering over you heading into the West Final.
No, and certainly the outcomes may not matter, but I think the vibes from the game will still matter, if that makes sense.
Oh, certainly.
That'll kind of be what people will be looking for, and I think even that there will be some grace on. I don't think anyone's going to expect masterpieces the next 2 weeks because, I mean, they haven't delivered one in a month, for one. And number two, yeah, we know what these games are, and I think I would expect next week's game against BC to be a little bit better because I'm in the camp where, okay, I would sit as many people as possible this week against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Winnipeg because I am not rolling that dice. The following week at home against BC, okay, maybe I'm giving Trevor Harris a quarter, a half, something
like a preseason
something along those lines, just to get him some throws in. Same with maybe not AJ Olette. The running back doesn't matter so much in that regard, but some of the other players, just get them out there, get them running around, get them in the feel of the game still for a little bit, and then in the third and fourth quarter especially, pull them out, let the other guys close it out. Because I think if you sat everyone the final two games and then the bye week before the West Final, that's probably too much sitting, I would say.
Certainly. And that comes down to it again. I know I make this reference all the time. The old Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts teams where Peyton didn't play for 3 weeks and they were dog shit when it mattered.
Yeah. And we've seen this team struggle off buys to begin with, so I don't think I want to risk it with giving Trevor Harris 3 weeks off before he plays another game, unless he physically really needs it. And I guess we don't really know. He talked to Justin Dunk. His shoulder's apparently a little bummed up, but nothing that he says he can't play through. So unless there's a medical reason not to play Trevor Harris, though he's out here talking about how he wants to fight Corey Mace for not letting him play, to me that says, okay, we will probably see Trevor Harris for a little bit next week, and apparently my Google agrees.
That would be fair. I think, though, we've seen it, and this is where the interesting question comes up in seeing how flat Trevor's throws have looked the past 2 weeks, which has led to the downfall of the offense to a degree. That how bad is that shoulder?
Yeah.
Right? Does he actually need the 2 weeks off, but needs to get in there because he's a gamer and be on rhythm and stuff? And that to me is where we're going to really see the evolution of Corey Mace.
Yeah, and it's with Trevor Harris especially. I think it's a tough spot to be in because, you can see his throws aren't quite there right now. But as you said, I think he is a rhythm quarterback. And when he's in his rhythm, he is amongst the best to ever do it in this league. When he gets knocked out of his rhythm, he doesn't look anywhere near that. So that's the rope you're trying to balance here right now with Trevor Harris, where it's like, okay, we can rest this guy. We should probably give this guy some rest. But he very much relies on being on a rhythm at the same time.
No, certainly. And that's where I think Corey Mace is going to have to be the head coach because Trevor's going to want to play. Trevor's going to want to fight him to play. But Corey Mace, as he seems to be more growing into this role, as one does, as somebody that's willing to learn and grow and adapt and not just become a dictatorship, it does. I think we're going to see Corey Mace, able to say, no, Trevor, you need to sit down if his shoulder really is as bad as it is.
Yep. But only time will tell. We'll see what happens next week against the BC Lions. I imagine we'll see him out there for a little bit. I'd like to see Jack Cohn in that game a bit too, if at all possible.
Oh, I would love to see Jack Cohn.
So we will cross that bridge when we get there next week. For now, we're looking ahead to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but we're also looking ahead to the 27 and 28 regular seasons. As also this week, the Riders announced that they have signed head coach Corey Mace and general manager Jeremy O'Day to extend 2-year extensions, which will keep them with the club through the 2028 season. It's because they still had a year left on their contract this year. So next year, they're still under the old deal, and then 27-28 is the new deal. And I think it's pretty hard to argue against this being a bad decision.
No. It's always funny. It always makes me laugh, more so with Jeremy O'Day than, the Rough Rider coaches. It seems like there's always, O'Day is always on the hot seat at one point before his new contract extension kicks in. It's usually like with 2 years left to go. So obviously they're good this year. They're going to be good the next year. 2027, they're going to be awful. But 2028, they're going to be very good just based on the way that history has gone. I can't think of another executive in any level of pro sports that ends up on the hot seat, but ends up so consistently bailing himself out through good management decisions and getting off of it.
Phrasing. I think. I think Jeremy O'Day's sort of steadiness as a manager has generally paid off for him. It's been made sure that, okay, he hasn't overbuilt the team. He hasn't gone too crazy like they did ahead of the 2013 season and led the cupboards being bare going forward, right? Like, granted, 2014, they were also good, but some things happened, and from the rest is history, as they say. And I know you specifically talked about in 2022 when the Grey Cup was here, you thought they should go all in. And I was like, I don't know. I think you just kind of play what you got. You try to build the best team you can every single year and don't necessarily do anything special for a Grey Cup year. It didn't work out with them in terms of actually making the postseason, but I think it allowed them to be in a better spot to sort of rebuild to where they are now, where they can hopefully sustain something for a little bit here. The roster is a little bit on the older side, so it's going to take some work to get there. There's no question about that, but that's not unusual in the CFL. It is a league that generally skews older than the NFL. So you see older rosters all the time, and you can certainly manage your way out of it through free agency and good use of the neg list and drafting, which I think are all, Jeremy O'Day knows how to pick his spots there. He doesn't necessarily go out there or make the biggest and splashiest moves, but generally speaking, there aren't too many that I can say haven't worked out. Even, last year when we talked about them signing AJ Ouellette, and we didn't really like the idea of putting money into a running back, and then he sucked last year and he got hurt last year. And this year he's their no question MOP. So it's like, okay, clearly they've figured this out, and Jeremy O'Day's system is working pretty well for them. And
he just so consistently proves us wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I
wrote the piece a couple years ago that when Jeremy O'Day decided not to fire Craig Dickinson after the first meltdown season.
Yes.
That he had essentially chosen a second head coach that day, and he was going to sink or swim with Craig Dickinson.
Yes.
And, I mean, we all saw what happened. That boat sunk again. The 18-wheeler once again went off the cliff. And Craig Reynolds, to his credit, decided, no, we are going to keep Jeremy O'Day. He believes in the process here. And despite a lot of people saying that shouldn't have been the case, and I was kind of on the fence about Jeremy O'Day one way or the other. I didn't necessarily hate keeping him, but I also wouldn't have hated got rid of him. Luckily for the team and the fan base, Craig Reynolds made the correct decision to keep Jeremy O'Day around.
Yes, who would have thought football people know better than two talking voices on a podcast? But you're bang on that, because I remember that time, and I think that was more of a criticism of Craig Dickinson than it was of Jeremy O'Day, because I think at some point, you look at all successful franchises, and when they go through their glory day eras, they need stability, right? The teams that just constantly change, look at the Buffalo Sabres, right? Like, that's a great example. They're just an absolute dumpster fire, right? And I know you and I joke privately all the time about your Pittsburgh Steelers just finishing at one game over 500 and losing in the first round of the playoffs, but that's a position a lot of NFL fan bases would die to be in, right? So I think at some point stability is good to me, and especially now in the modern era. I think it's more about changing your coach's voice than it is about the general manager. Right? Now, if the general manager is out just completely destroying your team and making them dog shit and you can't improve, I think obviously you have to make a change there, but you're looking at the CFL as a whole, last year, this year, the year before, you're seeing more and more teams that are like, okay, Saskatchewan's really good this year, and then you got a whole whack of teams that are at or near the 500 mark, right? So I think stability in the GM chair is very good. I do think you need to change the coaching voice from sometimes. And we absolutely saw that in the change of Craig Dickinson to Corey Mace. You could not have two more opposite people in that role.
Yeah, and clearly Jeremy O'Day managed to save himself by making the decision at the time to hire Corey Mace. And I don't think any of us sat here and said that it was a poor decision at the time. No question about that, especially after we, finally got this, hear him talk about being the head coach of this team and how bought in he was. You're like, okay, like clearly Corey Mace won over Jeremy O'Day, and that made sense, because I think all of us sort of expected they were heading towards Buck Pierce, right?
Yes.
And there was all the signs are pointing to various points, and it was like this guy, and there was this guy, and there was this guy, and then it ended up being Corey Mace. And I think even Jeremy O'Day, to a degree, through the interview process, maybe had his idea in mind that I don't think it was Corey Mace necessarily up front. But as he actually went through the process and respected the process, he was like, oh, this is the guy. And I think that's another thing that Jeremy O'Day deserves credit for was, I think if you ask him 20 years from now when he's retired, he's probably not going to tell you now that, yeah, I'm just speculating here that maybe before the process began, after Craig Dickinson was let go and he's looking at potential head coaches that were available to him and the people he interviewed, I'm going to guess that maybe Corey Mace wasn't choice number one.
No.
But he went through the process. He respected the process. He put his biases aside. He didn't just stick to what he initially wanted at the time, whatever that sort of depth chart of those available coaches was. He went through the process, and wherever Corey Mace fell on that, he shot all the way up to number one because clearly they connected. And during that interview, it was like, okay, yeah, this is clearly my guy. And not every general manager in sports will do that because they'll want to hire their buddies, they'll want to hire people they have connections with, they'll want to hire a certain type of coach. Because I think we were all talking about the fact that they need an offensive coach because they've had defense and special teams for so long, and this team needs to be good on offense and flashy and fun again. And they went with another defensive coach, and boy, has it worked out.
No, certainly. And credit to Craig Reynolds and the rest of the people that run the Rough Riders. I'm sure they all wanted, because let's face it, Buck Pierce was the sexy hire last year.
Yep.
Or 2 years ago, pardon me. Buck Pierce was the guy that, oh yeah, no, he's the next guy. He's the next sexy coaching candidate. And that's the ones
Stupid sexy Buck.
He's not a bad looking dude, I'm not gonna lie.
Looks better than your boy Ryan Dinwiddie these days.
Oh God, I know. That's even Lacey looked at the game. She's like, "Is that Ryan Dinwiddie?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." Guy's had a hard few years, but to be able to identify the best guy for the job and shut out the outside noise and be like, "This guy is my guy, no matter what." And I remember texting you the night of the Kinsman Sports Celebrity Dinner.
Yep.
Where Corey Mace, and let's face it, most writers that go there, they tell a couple funny stories, but it's not usually memorable, right?
Yep.
It's okay. That's a good story. Hey, they got white IPA here. Oh shit, I have to go present an award. I've had 6 white IPAs. Okay, kind of put my game face on. But I remember texting you that night, and I was there with Don Bohe, my father-in-law, lifelong Riders fan. I remember texting you that night being like, I'm ready to run through a wall for Corey Mace. And I imagine that's the energy he has. And I don't know. I see, and the poor guy's about to be Fraser cursed. I just see the way he carries himself. I see his commitment to the job. I see his ability to evolve. Yep. You've even watched him grow as a coach. I see him being the coach for a very long time, past that 2028 extension. Corey Mace, I'm sorry, Fraser curse.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge will be going forward, now that they're good, does it get to him? Like we saw Corey Chamberlain buy into his own bullshit and think that he is capable of doing this thing by himself and completely ruin what was working in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
And I'm not accusing Corey Mace of being the same person that Corey Chamberlain is, because I don't think he is. I think they are obviously very completely different people with his family here and Canadian and the whole thing, right? Like I think it's very different, but winning can change your perspective on things. And I think, how long-term this is will be determined on how Corey Mace adapts to being a winner, because I think even until the season, to a degree, we saw Dave Dickinson kind of get stuck in his ways because of how good Calgary was for so long. Yes, and to his credit, he's snapped out of it a bit, maybe not completely, but he has actually self-scouted a bit and said, okay, I need to do a few things differently if I'm going to stay in this job. And that's sort of the next sort of evolving stage of Corey Mace that we'll see just how long he remains in the coaching chair. I firmly believe he can do it. I don't think he's a guy who's necessarily stuck in his ways except for his own defense. Beyond that, I think, a lot of sort of overarching big philosophical picture things about the way he runs his team. I think he's very open to, sort of adapting and making sure that he does what they need to do to remain competitive.
Well, I think the big thing with Corey Mace is keep an eye on I love his stoicism on the sidelines when things aren't going their way, and how that is turned around the second one of his guys makes a big play. Right?
Yep.
To me, the fact that he's always lifting people up around him, he's the first guy that wants to jump in and high five and hug his guys, slap them on the chest and tell them a great job they've done, while still, maintaining the calm that's needed from a head coach. The second he stops doing that, I'm not suggesting he will,
Yep.
but that to me would be the deciding point, that means you think your shit doesn't stink. And I don't know. This is a total outside observation. I don't know him from a hole in the ground. I briefly met his wife once at a Rush game, and outside of that, don't know the guy, but it just seems like everything he puts out there and what he preaches and what he speaks and what he believes, that he's going to be that guy. And let's face it, I mean, you and I are both in management level positions now.
Yeah.
People don't respond to being berated anymore. People don't respond to that old school mentality. And I know it's something I personally struggle with in my management role, that there are guys that are older in my industry that only respond to that. The old school, bring the hammer down. But that's the beauty of a professional football roster. You've got guys that are mostly the same age. And I think that's the way people, our generation and younger, we want to be lifted up. We don't want to be berated anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there's still maybe some out there that respond to that. And being a good coach or manager is knowing that everyone's buttons are pushed differently, right?
Certainly. And that nothing can be fixed by going bowling when you suck.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.